For the first time in several years, the entire state of Utah has experienced low rainfall, and our water year is going to end up critically short. This is magnified by the extreme numbers of wildfires we've seen across the state. How big of a role does water play in it? A fairly substantial one. Hello again and welcome to the county seat. I'm Chad Booth. The governor's 50-year water plan was unveiled this year, and it's far from previous versions of long-range water planning in that it is calling for regional development of water conservation plans to be the basis of statewide goals. How that is set to happen is the subject of our show today. So let's start with a look at what Utah's water profile is and what bad water habits we have here in the state, with the basics.
Utah faces a daunting challenge. We have the distinction of being both one of the driest states in the nation and one of the fastest growing. At the convergence of those two realities is the challenge of providing water for the population that is projected to nearly double by 2060. A few years ago, Governor Herbert challenged Utahns to reduce their water use by 25% by the year 2025. So, in 2013, the governor invited a group of stakeholders with extensive backgrounds in various aspects of water expertise with a diverse set of perspectives to form the State Water Strategy Advisory Team. He charged his advisory team to 1. Evaluate potential water management strategies, 2. Frame various water management options and the implications of those options for public feedback, and 3. Based on broad input, develop a set of recommended strategies and ideas to be considered as part of a 50-year water plan. This plan has just been finalized over the summer and has given us a broad look at the water situation in the state of Utah. So, how much water do Utahns use? Well, according to the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, Salt Lake County residents use about 220 gallons of water per day. That's the same as 4 55-gallon drums. You know, the kind that are big enough that I could hide in? That's a lot of water for one person. As Utah continues to be plagued with frequent droughts, and with Utah projected to double in population in the next 40 years, citizens will need to manage our water use better. Now, this doesn't mean not watering our lawns, or limiting the number of loads of laundry a house can do in a day, or how many 2-minute showers you can get each week. It's about finding where wasteful use of water happens and fixing the problems. Modern technology can help cut down the water use on lawns, toilets, and showers. There are plenty of things we can do to prevent wasteful water use. Chad will take up the discussion of what we are doing to meet the conservation plan going forward, which will include conserving what we use while protecting the water sources that we are entitled to. Counties and the state must work together to tackle the future of water in Utah. For the county seat, I'm Maria Rossi Booth.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Antelope Island State Park. Think of it as a treasure island because of the unique activities and treasured experiences you'll enjoy there. Join the fun and excitement of the National Parks Band overlooking White Rock Bay on Saturday, September 22nd. Bring your chairs and friends to Antelope Island State Park for a beautiful evening concert by the National Parks Band. Tickets at friendsofantelopeisland.com. Discover nature, buffalo, historic Gar Ranch, and more at Antelope Island State Park. Visit plaindavis.com/antelope today.
This is what adventure looks like, and here's what it sounds like. Southwest Utah's Iron County offers some of the most iconic trails within the state that include 200 miles of new trails to be discovered. Check out ironcounty.net for info and interactive maps for your complete guide to off-roading. Explore countless miles of trails in the heart of Dixie National Forest, the gateway to Utah National Parks, Iron County.
Mountains to explore. adventure to be had. A town to fall in love with. Yes, all that in Park City, Utah. Start planning your fall adventure at visitparkcity.com.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about water and the future. The governor's made a very big point about this, about our having to take the lead at finding our path to water conservation in the next 50 years. There are a lot of different ways to look at it, and we've tried to bring some of those perspectives together for the conversation. Joining us from the Utah Division of Water Resources, the Outreach Section Manager, Joshua Palmer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And from a county perspective, a little closer to on the ground, Dean Draper, who's the County Commissioner for Millard County, Utah. Thank you both for taking the time. Dean, thanks for making the drive up here today.
You bet.
What is the main and biggest emphasis that people need to know about water conservation going forward?
I think the biggest emphasis really is that we are transferring our approach from just a statewide perspective to looking at water conservation potential at a regional level. And so there's actually some research that's going on right now where we're looking at the different regions and what the potential for water efficiency is. And we're not talking about not using any water or telling people they can't use anything. We're just looking at what is the potential for us to be the most efficient, to eliminate waste, and to use this precious resource in the best, most useful way possible. And so we will be on the ground talking to people like Dean, people throughout the state, to try to decipher, instead of just statewide, what we should be working towards from water conservation perspective, what is regionally appropriate? What takes those regions into account? How is Millard County different than Cache County? And what are the different things that need to be taken into consideration? And so as we move forward with water conservation and with water efficiency and water topics in general, we are really focusing on those local voices because they are the ones on the ground.
How much more efficient have we already become in the way we handle agricultural water?
Well, there's two different versions in Millard County. You have flood irrigation, where you have a canal that goes to a ditch and then you flood the surface of the ground, or you have sprinkler irrigation, where usually a pivot is in place at this time with technology. The farmers are putting in concrete ditches so that they don't have ditch loss, which was a thing of 100 years ago. You couldn't control it. That ditch was going to absorb so much before it ever made it to your field. Mm-hmm. In the town I live in, Scipio, they have put in a large pipeline so that water coming from Scipio Lake makes it to the fields more efficiently. And in fact, you don't have ditch loss with that. So the conserving that they're doing in that manner is to make it so that you get the biggest bang for the buck out of the water.
How are you going to solve those issues? You know, before we started taping the program, we were discussing a little bit about the fact that Washington County is trying to stake claim on water that lies basically as the primary source for groundwater in Millard County, and half of Nevada's after that same pot of water. How are you going to, from a state level, manage those conflicts in between regions? Because St. George is going to think they're entitled to that water, and I'm sure the people in Millard County think they're entitled to that water as well. What do you guys have to say about that?
Well, you know, I think the biggest thing is there has to be that water rights analysis, right? So you have water rights that are built into a system that is designed to protect water rights holders. So obviously that is going to be a key contributor to it. From a statewide perspective, from our division's perspective, I mean, what we would look to do is bring people together to have a discussion about it. I mean, we're at a point in our history where the water supply is more critical than it's ever been. And these kinds of discussions are going to become the norm. These discussions where good people from good communities want to make sure that their people and their communities have the water that they need. And in an effort to do a good thing for their community, sometimes there's going to be disagreement about where they're getting that water from. So I think really it starts with bringing the experts together, the regional experts together, to talk about it, to have that discussion, to vet it out. And we could come in as a state and act like we've done this analysis and say, hey, we have the answer. And we could bring everybody in and, you know, ask everybody to celebrate our brilliance because we found the answer. And they'd look at us like with a blank look on their face, like, what are you doing? You are not the appropriate people to make this determination. We need to be the ones who work through this. And so I think as these challenges come up, whether it be in Millard County or Washington County or whether it be up north, it's really important to bring the people that are involved in that discussion together to try to get on the same page and find a way to work it out.
How are you going to deal with that issue? I mean, you of all counties are probably already facing this fact that they're, with the Snake Valley, that there are a lot of people that are after that water, and nobody knows exactly what's going to happen if people start taking their half of the water table out, because I don't know that there's a concrete barrier under the ground right there at the Nevada-Utah border.
No, there's no natural division that way, arbitrary political divisions. The great problem that is facing the whole state of Utah right now and this water conservation effort is water is more or less a finite resource. The history that they have for precipitation, snowfall, water flows, they've got 100 years worth of records or better. They know what they can anticipate. We're in a huge drought cycle right now. And so things are lower. In the Great Depression, people in rural Utah were not affected by economics. They had plenty to eat. The great problem they had was the drought that existed through the Great Depression. They couldn't raise crops. The state of Nevada has taken a turn on beneficial use that hopefully the state of Utah will not. If you discover water in Nevada, the state has first rights to it. It's almost not worth your while to go and find a new aquifer. The aquifers that underlie Millard County, Beaver County, Iron County, everything in the state, if you want to go from the Idaho border down to the Arizona border, is already over-appropriated. They're allowing people to use more water than exists that's paper water. And you have to have a change from the entire version if we're going to actually really conserve water to safe yield. We're allowing way too much water to be used in some areas. Barrel Enterprise, you have ground subsidence because they're pumped all the water out of the aquifer and it's falling. There's a similar place over in Eureka, Nevada called Diamond Valley. The exact same thing's happening. You drive past on US 50 and you see all this agricultural equipment for sale because they can't grow crops anymore. If you take an improper look at beneficial use, and it's more beneficial that it all go to the metropolitan areas, and you don't care if you take that from the rural areas, there are things in place within the state of Utah for interbasin transfer. It's not just interbasin transfer in another state. And that would preclude growth in a rural community and augment growth in a metropolitan area.
If you don't manage groundwater, I mean, I guess people always think if you sink a well, it will be there, but a well goes from 30 feet to 50 feet to 60 feet to 100 feet, and then pretty soon you've hit the rock on the bottom. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, aquifers are not bottomless.
So what's the solution?
Yeah, you know, and I think I alluded to this before, but, you know, we're in the process of updating our state water plan right now. And in the past, what would happen is we would have our engineers and experts put together a plan, and then they take it to the community and get feedback on that plan, and then it was a state of the state of Utah water. We're doing a little differently this time. Instead of drafting something and then asking, what do you think? We're saying, what do you think? and then we're drafting something. So we've actually put together an advisory committee, a state water plan advisory committee. It includes people from the agricultural sector. It includes people from the environmental advocacy sector. It includes people from the business sector. It includes politicians. It includes a really diverse group of people to try to kind of get that full story. So that we can understand ahead of time what people see the challenges as being, and then actually create a plan that institutes some goals and actions for us to understand these things better, for us to do a better job of reaching out and learning from the local communities and from these different sectors. We're not going to get to where we need to be from a Utah water perspective if we're not all working together. We need businesses to do better. We need businesses to be more efficient. We need residents to understand that this is a precious resource, that this is not just something that is unlimited. And there's a lot of resources out there for them to make changes that won't impact their quality of life, will actually make their lawn look better. For example, there's a Localscapes program that has these flowering, beautiful, water-wise, native plants that actually makes your yard look better and can cut your usage by 20%. So we're looking at those kind of things. The other things that we're looking at is measurement on a residential scale. We think secondary water metering is really important. In the areas that they've done secondary water metering, and they've just told the residents, this is how much you're using and this is how much you should be using, they're seeing 30 to 40% more efficiency just because they didn't know before.
You think we can get 30% more savings?
Oh yeah. If we're talking statewide, there's that much, there's almost that much opportunity just by metering, just by letting people know what they're using versus what they should be using. That's what the data is telling us.
Will 30% get us to our goal? To meet the population demands of the future, we're going to have to do more.
I don't believe 30% will get you where you want to go.
Okay, we've got our work cut out for us. Gentlemen, thank you. This has been a very good conversation. Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be right back. We're going to take a personal look at some of the things Josh was talking about on what it may look like if you go and do a redesign on your yard. We'll be right back with County Seat.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
Too often we find ourselves in shoes like these, or these. Wouldn't it be nice to change into something more like this, or this? How about these? Put on whatever shoes you prefer and come to Beaver County. We have exactly the adventure you need to put under them. So the next time you want to change out of these, come to Beaver County where you can jump into a pair of these. Beaver County, Utah. Lace up for adventure.
Welcome back to the county seat. Take a look around you. The yard you see all around you today, that green, cool English lawn of our nation's heritage, is destined to be a thing of the past. Does that mean that our yards will be barren, gravel-filled wastelands too hot to walk on without shoes? Well, probably not. As we find out, taking a look at how much middle ground there is between gravel and Kentucky blue.
Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District is one of the largest water providers in the state of Utah. We, with 3 other water agencies in Utah, provide water to 86% of the state's population.
There was a need early on for water conservation efforts and a program, and the place to start was to give people an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about water-wise landscaping and what it looks like in Utah. So the garden was developed for that purpose, a place where people can come and learn about plants, irrigation principles, and principles of water-wise landscaping to help them in their own yards.
The Harvest Yard teaches people how to save water and grow things that are edible. So we have these raised growing beds that have drip irrigation in them that you can see here. The drip irrigation is 90% efficient, which is way more efficient than most spray systems are.
60% of our water is used outside, drinking water. It's going on your grass. If we minimize the amount of grass that we have and put in more planting beds and then water those planting beds with drip irrigation, we're going to save half of our water.
This is a typical Utah landscape. You can see it's about 90% lawn. It uses quite a bit of water, and there's not a whole lot to do back here as far as having activity zones or gathering areas. This is the same size as the other exhibit that we just looked at, but we have lawn in it still, but we have other things to do. We have a gathering area with places to sit. We also have an activity area with a barbecue, and the planting beds are watered by drip irrigation that is far more efficient than spraying the planter beds.
Some of the basic ways people can save water so that we can meet our goal of 25% reduction in water use is just to make simple changes in their landscape. If they'll reduce their turf grass and water less and water the way grass really wants to be watered, we can meet that goal.
So a lot of times we hear about indoor water conservation with taking shorter showers and things like that, but really the biggest impact is in the landscape.
We're showing different types of lawn that you can grow in your garden that use different amounts of water, and some that you can plant that actually can save you quite a bit of water. So you can actually change out what type of lawn that you have in your landscape and save some water without changing the overall look of your landscape.
If we want to have enough water for our children and grandchildren, we've got to use water differently here in Utah. And if we do, maybe we won't have to develop any more water sources, and that would be great.
Currently, a USU professor, Paul G. Johnson, is studying 177 types of lawn turf in an attempt to find the ones best suited for Utah's arid climates. Interesting fact. We will be back with the county seat in just a minute.
If you're looking for gold at the end of the rainbow, you'll probably be disappointed, because in Paiute County, the only thing you'll find at the end of a rainy day is the promise of adventure. Highway 89 is your access point through Marysville and the historic trails of Bouillon Canyon. Find yourself in the mountains one minute and the desert the next as you follow in the footsteps of the pioneers. Whitewater raft, fish, hike, all within a few minutes of a comfortable bed and a warm meal. Find out why the world has made Paiute County its off-road destination. Paiute County, the place where the rainbow ends.
In a place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
For 7 years, Utah's Community Voice has been the county seat, a program that looks beyond politics to spotlight the issues and stories that really matter to you and your community. Now you can help set Utah's agenda for the future by joining the conversation. Become a county seat sponsor and help support those conversations that are critical to the future of state government. Contact us at 801-947-8888 to make your contribution to help the voice of Utah be heard like never before.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Welcome back to the county seat. Are you like me? I hate to be told I have to do anything. When the need for conserving water across the state first started creeping into our daily conversation, before people had even learned how to correctly say xeriscaping, I thought I would be the last holdout for that nice soft Kentucky blue yard of my childhood. But a couple of acres of lawn and a dozen gardens later, I am all about finding that perfect landscaping. Now, I have a neighbor near my house, just around the corner actually. His name is Eric Maxfield. He has taken this desert landscaping idea and embraced it fully. What he has ended up with is a yard that is always green without being lush. It is private as the purple sage grows tall along a berm that runs along the edge of his front yard. And elevated gardens with veggies and desert flowers take up much of the space of his old sun-drenched side yard. The thing is, I seldom see water on the landscaping, and his yard looks stunning. I admire it every time I walk by. When I grow up, or at least when my house does, I want it to look like Eric's. Eric's is not the first conversion I've seen in my short drive from my house to the office, but his by far is the best. To be fair, most of them do actually look pretty good now that they're established. And to that end, I have shut off the sprinkler early this season so that I can see what parts of the shade and sun yard I live in can support green grass with little water. Come next spring, I will be ready to mark and redesign the rest of the yard so that I can stand or sit in the nice, soft, cool grass in one spot in the yard and enjoy the desert green and bright desert perennials in the rest. Never thought I was going to be that guy, but now I realize I am. And you know, I feel better for it. Truly, I really do. I will leave that extra water for my agricultural friends so that their aquifers do not need to subsidize mine. That's my 2 cents worth for the county seat. Thanks for watching today. Please take the time to share the show with your friends, neighbors, legislators, and other people that make our life worth living here in Utah. And I invite you to follow us on social media and encourage you to chime in on these topics. Agree or not, good civic dialogue helps us all understand better. I look forward to your comments, and we'll see you next week on the County Seat.